Hi folks, Mike here from TurfmenUK. Unfortunately, we've been rained off yet again here in Keswick in the Lake District. So we're going to discuss a topic today which we will get asked about probably more than anything at the moment, which is our good friend moss. Now we're going to discuss what moss is, what conditions it thrives in, and how we can treat and eradicate it from our surfaces. Now today we're talking at a bowling green, but a lot of the practices we do here now can apply to lawns as well. So moss is a fairly simple plant. It's a member of the bryophyte family, which also includes algae. And it doesn't actually put roots down into the soil, but connects to it by a series of rhizoids, which it connects to the soil plus the host plant, which is invariably the grass. Now, it doesn't produce seed, it actually produces spores, which it gets transferred down through the plant to help with reproduction. And the way that these spores are passed down is through moisture. So hence, if it's really wet, moss will thrive because we're providing the ideal conditions for it to reproduce.
So now we're going to look at some of the environmental conditions that make moss thrive in our greens. As Mike mentioned in his introduction, moss loves moisture. So we need to look at our green and ask ourselves, is moisture getting away from the surface as quickly as we would like? If it's not, then we need to look at some of the factors that are contributing to this. Some of these factors can include poor drainage, heavy soil, thatch, compaction, as well as poor air movement and lack of light. Added to this, poor sward development as well as low pH can also contribute with thatch build-up in our greens. So now we're going to take a look at some of the cultural practices that we carry out on our green to reduce moss in it. So now we're going to take a look at what we do to physically remove moss from our green before the start of the season. Mike?
Yeah, well, traditionally in the greenkeeping industry, we've always put on lawn sand, which is a bag of dried sand with probably 3 or 4% nitrogen and anything between 4 and say 9% sulphate of iron. Now the sulphate of iron goes on, you leave it for probably 10 to 14 days, it blackens the moss, dries it out, and then we physically have to go out and rake up the debris. Now that can be with a springbok rake, it can be with a scarifier, and it can be with a verticutter. There's also other products on the market as well. There's various liquid irons which maybe are easy to put on, less chance of any scorching. There's also things like, there was a product called Mogaton, which was in the golf industry for a while, which dried the spores up to stop it reproducing, but I think that might be off label now, I'm not quite sure. There's a product called Ferramel, which is 20% sulphate of iron, which will definitely make your bowling green go black or your lawns go black. And you can also buy soluble sulphate of iron, which can go up to, I think it's about 30%, probably the highest level it can go. But traditionally the lawn sand's been the easiest way of treating it, and it's probably the cheapest as well at the moment. So we've talked about the procedure of putting the lawn sand onto the green here, and now we're going to talk about other practices we can use throughout the season to keep the moss levels to a minimum. Yeah.
I think we talked in the environmental conditions in which moss thrives. So we're going to look at the subjects or each individual one in turn. So we're looking at compaction, heavy soils, thatch development and poor drainage. So if we look at thatch to start with, throughout the playing season at the start of the year, we've verticut. We occasionally have scarified as well in the past, but we say that generally till the end of the year after the playing season's finished, when winter's coming, to try and remove as much of the rubbish out of the profile as we possibly can to aid with drainage, don't we?
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, if we've scarified at the back end of the year, and hopefully the thatch levels shouldn't have increased that much through the winter, And also we've got to remember that potentially in 5 or 6 weeks' time we should be hoping to get the greens open.
Yeah.
So the scarifying is a great procedure, but it's quite an aggressive thing to do on your green, where a verticutter is maybe a slightly better option. But it depends on your green surface and how much thatch you've got in, how much moss you've got in, how much you're trying to remove. Sometimes you've got to go with a scarifier, really.
I mean, when you look here on our green, we have what 200 centimetres of rain a year, so it pays for us at the back end to really be quite aggressive with our scarifying, to get as much of the rubbish out, to try and aid with getting that volume of water away as quickly as we possibly can.
Yeah. I mean, we're probably one of the wettest areas in the country to have a bowling green, and it's like I said before. One of the things that moss doesn't like, it doesn't like disturbance, and it loves sitting wet. So if we can do anything to keep the surface as dry as possible, and also to increase the movement on the green, that will obviously help. Now, we normally aerate the green 2 or 3 times through the winter with the Toro Procore, and we tie into different depths, so we're not getting that pan in the soil. You tend to find if you aerate to the same depth all of the time, you can end up with a pan where basically like the top of a crumpet, where the butter goes down so far and then stops. So that's what we're trying to avoid. We microsine through the plain season, we saddle roll through the plain season, and we also verticut. We probably verticut at least once a month, preferably more if possible, because that can improve the green speed without having to start shaving the greens down to get them to really low levels. So often a verticut before you cut can give you a far better.
And all those things reduce the levels of thatch in the green and improve drainage really quite well, don't they?
Yeah. I mean, it's we're trying to produce the best playing surfaces we can, and sometimes you need to work on those. Not everybody can get them right straight away. I don't think we've got them right here. I don't think there's ever been any time really where I thought the green surface is absolutely perfect. But like I said, the disturbance is a big thing. Moss doesn't like being disturbed. It likes to sit there, basically getting a free ride, which it does, particularly this time of year and through the winter. So it sits wet for long periods of time, doesn't get footfall over it, doesn't get many machines over it, so hence it obviously thrives. So anything we can do to disrupt it, that's obviously going to be the best. I
mean, as well, we can dilute we can improve the texture of the soil. So we're talking about the type of soil that we've got here. We've got quite a heavy soil. So I think we do top dress quite regularly, which improves the texture of the soil, makes it more friable. Gets water away better, and also dilutes the thatch in the surface profile as well. So that's another job that we do throughout the year. So there's a number of jobs that we do in the plain season, but like we were just talking about before about the back end of the year, where because of the volume of rainfall we've got to be slightly more aggressive, and because there's not as much wear on the green, we have to prepare our bowling green for the winter ahead and the chance that it might get moss on it because of the weather. We can't really do anything about that, can we?
I think there's always been a saying in a lot of bowling clubs, cricket pitches, maybe I mean not so much in golf, but particularly in bowling greens and cricket pitches, where you put the green or the pitch to bed. And that's basically your end of season renovation. We've seen it on cricket pitches where end of season renovation is done. There's a rope goes around the square and then it gets left for the winter. To my mind, I think if we can, even a simple thing like just drag brushing your square every now and again can help dry the surface up. And this green here is actually being cut today, and if we can get it cut on a regular basis when ground conditions and temperatures are right. Obviously, if it's hard frosts or it's waterlogged, we want to be trying to keep off the green as much as we can. But as soon as ground conditions are allowed, then that's what we should be trying to do.
So that's what we do on the green throughout the year to sort of maintain it, and with the hope of reducing the levels of moss on it. We also need to just touch on environmental conditions in and around the green and what we can do to improve them. So I mentioned before about air movement and getting light to the green to dry things out quicker. So we've got to look at where our green is situated, if it's surrounded by trees or houses that are putting shade onto the bowling green. You can do something about trees with pruning or looking at branches that might be overhanging that might stop air movement from drying out your green.
Yeah, I mean obviously in the winter daylight's a big factor.
Yes.
We don't get a great deal of light onto the plant, so it can't photosynthesize. So one of the good things about the iron as well, the sulphate of iron, the lawn sand that we put on, is there's a little bit of nitrogen, but also with it darkening, it does help the plant to photosynthesize a bit quicker than it would normally do. So yeah, I mean that's basically where we are with moss. If we can try and keep our plant as healthy as possible and as dry as possible, then we have got a chance of keeping it to an acceptable level. Yeah.
So that's a bit of a chat about moss. If you'd like to get involved in the conversation, please leave your comments in below the video. And I hope this chat you found of interest and you've enjoyed it. And yeah, that's it for today, and we'll hopefully see you again soon.
So we hope you've enjoyed our discussion on moss and found it of some interest. Throughout the season, we'll be putting out various practical videos of the work that we carry out here at Fitzpark Bowling Club in the wonderful Lake District. So if you'd like some more information, please come and join us, and we'll look forward to seeing you next time.